sit in place with the order.
Yeah. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. This is the best show in town. Two Erics and Akshay.
Two Erics. There you get it.
So I think previously we spoke about, I think Phil talked about productivity using AI is a given, efficiency using AI is a given. Are we all there? Not yet, but eventually we will. So I want to spend next 30 minutes with both the Erics here trying to understand what's the growth and revenue opportunity using AI. Because while we are all thinking about productivity and efficiency, we should not lose sight of the real potential of AI, which is to generate more revenue, better customer experience, better employee experience, better bottom line for our businesses. And then also, where does the entire, while the topic says it's the agentic operating model, but where does the human sit in this operating model? Because at the end, it's all about the human experience amplification. So I want to spend the next 30 minutes with both the Erics on that. And again, I'm really glad that Eric Iverson, again, his experience has all been in the culture and creative industry, obviously recently and currently at CTO at UTA, which is one of the most, again, progressive agencies. A lot of experience and background in Amazon, MGM Studios, Sony. So if there is somebody who knows what the importance of human experience, the storytelling, the creative, the culture part of it, no better person than Eric Iverson here. And then also privileged to have Eric Shea. He's been on all sides of the table. He's been a startup founder. He's been on the product side of it, and then now more recently at PwC, where he leads some of the work that they do on agentic commerce.
He's very smart. We were talking about. Yeah.
Yes, super smart.
You guys are going to be excited to listen to this.
Too kind.
Here.
Too kind.
So again, I think very delighted to have both of you, Eric, and looking forward to the conversation. So I'm going to start with you. Obviously, in your role, you see a lot of CXOs. You see a lot of enterprises. When I hear from people here, clients, prospects, enterprises who are coming in here, one of the biggest questions that they have is, am I doing right in my AI strategy? Am I behind? Am I ahead? What are other people doing? There is a FOMO. So when you see a cross-section of enterprises, what are some of the people who are a little bit ahead doing differently? What does that look like?
Yeah, I would say, the clients I get a chance to work with, many of them have set up an AI governance board. They have a policy around AI use. And they're certainly working on their data. We've all been working on our data for a long time. By the way, we're going to be doing that for a long time still.
Very long time.
Very long time. But I think what I've seen that sets some of these leaders apart, one, they actually have an AI strategy that's tied to their corporate strategy with clear goals. That's different than having a governance board. Yeah. Two, I think it's leadership that's leading from the front, really adopting AI in their own work and encouraging the organizations, really being a champion. And this goes back to also changing the culture of the company to be AI first. And then lastly, I think really an emphasis on change management. How do we upskill our organization, bring the right talent in, and support them through this pretty gigantic change in how we're working?
Got it.
Yeah, no, I like it. And how many people liked that last session? I thought it was really good. And just two things that came to mind. One, they were talking about, George was mentioning about the CEO needing, you and I were talking about, how it's got to be top down. And it's like, it kind of has to start with the CEO also being, very aware how to use the tools. And they're really busy right now. And so earlier this year, I had actually made a point, we've been kind of keeping pace with David Kramer, our CEO, and he's been super supportive. But it was funny, this kind of things that I experienced. He's like, so I just came back from lunch with Jeffrey Katzenberg, and he has and this is going to make the point, he has basically someone that is teaching him how to use AI every week right now for an hour. And so we were able to increase the amount of time that we're spending every week right now. So I think kind of to that previous panel, I totally agree that it's got to come from the top. I know you and I were talking about that. So I do think that's a huge part of it. One thing I was almost as a question for you, which I agree on the goal side. What do you think a good goal is? We have a number of goals that we've been setting this year, but I think it'd be interesting for other people to hear about that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I hear from a lot of clients is cost cutting around AI, which I think is a little bit of tunnel vision. That is what everyone wants to hear. It's what the market wants to hear. I don't think that's actually the right thing to be aiming for. Certainly, we're going to get efficiency with AI, but I would argue that we should be pushing more on revenue growth, new business models, and I think that needs to be part of your strategy and part of your organization's goals. Otherwise, you could cut yourself to death.
Yeah, no, we had a big love fest behind it as we were prepping for this. But maybe I've asked a question for this. How many of you guys out there like sports? You enjoy sports. One of the things we do cover sports. So I'm really fascinated about how really great sports, not just like teams, but almost like dynasties come to be. And if you live here in Southern California, one of the greatest coaches, in basketball, we just had kind of going through March Madness is John Wooden, UCLA, if anyone knows that. You have the Coach K's of the world. My daughter's at the University of Alabama, where Nick Saban, there you go, look at that, we got some hands raised up there, was a coach for a long time. And a friend of mine actually worked on his staff for a long time. And so we spent a lot of time like lessons of like how does Nick Saban go about developing a leadership team. And this is super crazy, but if you go look at the final 4 teams in this year's college football playoffs, all 4 coaches were on Nick Saban's staff. They all learned from Nick Saban. I mean, just to give you kind of like a sense of it. And if you were listening to the University of Indiana, they were talking about the process. Well, the process was something that was actually invented by Nick Saban. And what is the process? The process is, and if you look at John Wooden and Nick Saban will say the same thing, which is exactly what you just said. Don't actually focus on the outcome. Focus on the process of the things that you need to do to get to the outcome, and the outcome will take care of itself. I actually just think what you just said a second ago is probably, and we're trying to move very heavily into that direction. Don't think it's like, well, we'll eliminate X number of heads from this department. Okay, let's actually focus on how to use AI to make this process super efficient, and what would great look like, not just from an efficiency point of view, but maybe actually improve customer service at the same time. Like in our organization, we actually created this like annoyance bot that looks at every ticket that comes in and says, how frustrated does the person sound?
Love
right?
that.
And then we actually escalate those faster. But so you could, I think, do both things, get more efficient and improve quality at the same time, don't you think?
I agree, and I think the other thing we've seen is going cross-functional across the organization when you're looking at those processes. Absolutely, you can start in a silo, start in one function, but think big, like think wide across the organization.
It's very Amazonian.
That goes back to, I think, 2 things. One is, I think you said something controversial, which is don't focus on the outcome, focus on the process.
Yeah.
Which I believe is more linked from a culture. How do you do the rigor of the culture day in, day out? Doing the hard things every day, right?
That's right, yeah. I don't know if the PE firms like it that much. There is a big debate about that. Like, show me what but I actually think you get there. I actually think you also create headwinds. So I think you mentioned like change management. I'll keep saying this because I believe it. This is the world's greatest change management experiment the world has ever had with human beings, ever, by a long shot. That's in this 5-year window that we're in. So if you, all of a sudden it's like, great, get excited about this program. We're going to eliminate half of y'all out here. I don't know which ones, but it's Game of Thrones, whatever, or, Hunger Games. I work in entertainment. But that's not that compelling. But I actually am not sure that's where we're going to end up anyway. So why create yourself a headwind when we need to do the opposite, right?
On that, I think, obviously, I think you're in the talent business, and I think UTA does into 53 different domains as we were talking, right? So it's not just in the motion picture business, but then also digital creators, influencers, sports, and so on, which is a very human industry, right? Your agents are, you really have the original agents, not the co-pilot agents.
Yeah, and it is kind of funny having agents are the most important thing inside our company, and having agents serving agents. But
so talk to us about a little bit about how have you crafted your AI strategy, and then something that you use beautiful, I mean, which I liked. Eric has a great framework on the human ceremony. So maybe talk to the audience a little bit about where do you see human in the loop, on the loop, around the loop.
Yeah, well, it's just two different things. So we'll do that, and then we'll riff on the loop. Yeah. I think we have like-minded thoughts. But so first of all, I'll just quick strategy this if it's useful to you all. But this gets in maybe to other conversations that we'll have. So we're blessed. We have a really great. I have a great boss in Bob Roback, who's bought or developed and sold a couple companies, very entrepreneurial, but gets tech. So I'm lucky that we have this really strong tech operational leader. And a year ago, he has this, and by the way, you can imagine that you get an executive who says, it's like, I don't want an AI strategy that's an AI strategy that's like, it's like having a hammer strategy. This is actually, his definition of it was identical to yours. What we actually want to understand is where all the workflows are, and then understand where we're going to apply these tools, and then we want to have a strategy on that. So what we actually ended up with, so that we could talk to, is anyone like noticed that in the last couple of years, this has been a bit of a titchy subject in Hollywood? Like we had an entire labor strike over this topic, right? And we've been working through, hopefully we don't have another one. So we also wanted to be super cognizant of how our industry would hear anything that we would talk about. So we said, let's break this AI thing. And by the way, I want you all to imagine, what is like the #1 movie of all time of AI going haywire? Terminator, right? Right? Would you everyone agree with that? Like that's like poster child. Well, Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of our clients. So I have get a training, and I just put him up at the top, and we actually made a point of that. And so it's like, look, not all AI is good or bad. There's like a spectrum in how we use it, and this is back where we get in the human in the loop. And so our first bucket, we're like, look, productivity. We, on behalf of our clients, should be using tools so that we could actually help our clients get jobs, develop their career, help where they are in their career, right? We should do that. Our agents should be using agents to do that. Everybody agree? That's like an easy thing. That's not as hard.
Agent squared.
Yeah, agent squared. But then there's some other buckets, and we're like carving them out as separate buckets. And the second one, which is AI is creating new opportunities for clients, and when our clients do well for us. And an easy example of that is what we call name, image, likeness, and voice. And so that we'll say the synthetic version of Arnold Schwarzenegger, who it is, that has appropriate uses for that and can be licensed out. So, we've done a number of deals. If anyone's seen like the Craig Robinson AT&T Wake You Up in the Morning clock, was one of the deals that we helped work with. It's pretty hilarious. But we have a bunch of things in that bucket. The next one is content creation. This one affects everybody in the room. So first of all, I have a belief that every single one of us is turning into the media industry. And you will see that in your own companies. You are all storytellers. The act of marketing is in the storyteller business, so you're going to get into that. But AI is having a dramatic impact on how we could actually do that. And then the last bucket is actually a defensive thing that we have to do, but actually has an offensive angle to it, which is, and you probably all see this, like deep fakes. And we've actually seen bad use of deep fakes. Well, one of the top areas of deep fakes affecting the world right now is they start with celebrities always, right? So, we get called into that. So how do we detect it? How do we do something about it? What do we do something there? And so those kind of are like 4 areas that we focus on as a company. And it's helpful for us to break that up a little bit into these different buckets. And certainly productivity goes down lower than that.
Yeah, it's just one of the levers.
Yeah. And I don't want to talk forever, so we'll talk you can start.
No, I want to
like
riff on one thing you said there. I mean, I think.
But I think if I can just
please.
You work with a lot of retailers, luxury retailers. How does that kind of play out? I mean, what do you see kind of just to...
100%. I think one thing I wanted to pull out from what you said is there is absolutely room for a human in the loop. We want that human connection, right? I have the opportunity to work with a lot of luxury brands. When you're spending a lot of money on a purse or a new suit, you want to have that relationship. You want them to know you. You want to have that human connection at the end of the day. And absolutely, we're using AI and agentic technology under the hood, like behind the scenes in the back room, to make it an efficient, operating model and whatnot. But we need that creative designer to come up with the product, and we want that salesperson to have that human connection. So I just think it's incredibly important we don't lose that through this process.
Yeah. We have infinite time, so we don't have a clock. That's what we're talking about. So I think on that, it's interesting being in the entertainment space because we actually, again, touchy subject. Where's the human in the loop? Actually, tomorrow, I've had some board time on this.
You had a great rubric on it, so maybe you want to expand on that.
Yeah. So I got this from a friend of mine who's a futurist several movies, and one of the things that Minority Report. You've seen Minority Report. He was one of the futurists on Minority Report, and he's also worked on a lot of product design. And one of the things he always like as we would talk about things, he was like, at the end of the day, when technology and humans meet, or that's what we're kind of like in the middle of right now, especially in storytelling, there's always a human ceremony. Like, there's a bunch of things like when we show up, we're going to go have happy hour, we're going to have dinner tonight, we kind of expect from one another. That's the human ceremony. And if someone does something kind of really weird, like then we don't like it. Like if someone just started recording you, don't mind me recording you, right? Okay, it's like, but an AI bot, sorry, but it's human ceremony, right? So and we don't want to violate human ceremony. And so I think that's the thing, is that I believe there's a few things that are very hardwired into us. One of them is storytelling, which we could talk in a whole other case. It's one of my favorite topics. But there's a bunch of these other kind of like hardwired behaviors of humans liking humans and trusting that like, hey, if you eat that food, then it's probably okay for me and we'll both survive. There's a bunch of things like that. And so I think this human ceremony, don't lose the human ceremony, is an easy way of kind of thinking about it. So I think a tech company, and I worked at one, thinks about how to automate everything that doesn't really need a human in it. I actually think at the same time we look at every problem both ways now and say, where does human have to be in the loop? And I think actually if you don't think of those things simultaneously, you're going to get yourself in trouble, because you could think of my father's a doctor, or he's retired, but there's a bunch of things we still want another human just to validate it's going to be okay, right? We like that, right? And we would want the doctor to have advice, and we want them to do that, just like a famous athlete or a famous musician like Bad Bunny wants human advice from another human, but also would like to know that you use kind of like some insights and analytics and you did your homework and all those things. They go together. So do we think like Bad Bunny just wants to talk to a machine? Probably not. I don't think so. So I think that if you go that same with Bad Bunny and the fans, and we in seeing entertainment, and we in talking to each other, right? Yeah. So I think we could put the human in a loop in many, many places, not just from a judgment, a creativity, and I think...
I think that phrasing is very beautiful, the human ceremony. I think we were also talking about, when we move to this agentic thing, do you really want to be greeted by a robot at the restaurant when you walk in?
Yeah, I mean, my prediction is that we'll still have Hostess in 10 years. I mean, I could be wrong, but I kind of I like technology. I'm a technologist. I still like talking to a human when I go to the restaurant.
But that goes to, but I would still, as a consumer of, motion pictures or luxury retail, I would expect my human interaction to be amplified by AI, right? So I think we were talking about, maybe you want to share a few examples on how some of the retailers or some of the other enterprises are leveraging that to really, we are seeing that in kind of wealth management, robo-advisors and things like that.
Yeah, and I think what you said is right. I mean, when we think about the process, we talked a lot about reinventing the process. It really is rethinking the work to be done and what can be done from an AI-first mentality, but also being just as thoughtful or more thoughtful about where the human plays a role. And so I had the opportunity to work with a client that was reinventing their customer experience. And as part of that, we all have call centers. One answer could have been, we're just going to automate our call center and you're going to talk to a bot. This is a higher-end retailer. Instead, what we did is actually say, no, these folks are some of our best and most trained, and what we're going to do is support them with AI, give them the information on the call in real time about not just how to service the customer, but actually to sell, something they had never done before. And so really turn their customer support channel into something that looks like a cost center, into something that's actually generating revenue, generating better customer experiences, just with a simple act of letting those humans do the work and have that customer relationship at the end of the day.
Yeah,
not replaced by AI.
I totally agree. We were joking around it. How many people like Chick-fil-A or have I know it's not the world's highest end thing, but if you got kids, I got kids and Chick-fil-A's on there. But I actually I didn't mention this before, I got to actually hang out with Dan Cathay in last year in Atlanta because Trillis Studios, he's a major investor into that, and we have a relationship with Trillis Studios. And if you've been through Chick-fil-A, the one thing you can't knock is the service is kind of amazing, right? And that is not a cheap thing to do. We were talking about that. There's no question that they have training, they have a culture, they are driving that forward. Definitely would want them to leverage all kinds of technology, being sort of supply chains and making sure things are good. But man, the fact that they have such good human culture that goes with it is one of the reasons why I want to shop there. So I do think that there's, both of those two things go with the brand.
And I think Amazon had this kind of great saying on building for things that are not going to change in 10 years, right? So this goes back to businesses will still need to earn that trust with the customers that they have. The culture, the brand, all of that is really fundamental. So those things I'm hearing from both of you, those are still on point. You can't go against the grain of what your culture really is as an enterprise and what your consumers know you for.
But I think the rate of change in what consumers expect out of there, whether it's a fast food or a restaurant or a luxury retail, it continues to grow. And so you do need to use AI and agentic technology to be more nimble as an organization, more agile, so you can react faster to what the customers want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I kind of think it's like, to me, it's like the roles, like, it was interesting. I was hanging out with a friend of mine that is a senior recruiter at Robert Half over the weekend, and we were joking around. She does a lot of recruiting and accounting. If you ever want to send your kids to school right now and guarantee they're going to have a job, accounting is where we have this like huge gap in kids going to school right now. But what's kind of interesting is like lawyers, accountants, these are things that are actually expecting to have demand on going forward. And if you think about
Licensed professionals.
they're trusted relationships, right? An agent, a Hollywood agent is a trusted relationship. A doctor is a trusted relationship. I think an executive is a trusted relationship. And if you have people doing customer service or handing you food, So I think you can look at everywhere where it's a human trusted relationship. Where are those going to get supported by AI? And that's a pretty easy place to bank where like you want to maybe intersect those two concepts.
I think so. That's an interesting thought in terms of, because one of the other questions that comes in as you start thinking about agentic workflows is where does the accountability lie? So clearly, the accountability based on what I'm hearing from you is still pretty much with the human, right? Because that's the trusted relationship that the human is maintaining with the end customer or talent in your case and so on.
I think so. I mean, you're expecting judgment. I mean, I think that's anything. Like, I feel like the bar on judgment is raising on that, and we're expecting it. And maybe kind of pivot. I love the conversation we were having. I would love to get your thoughts on it. This happened. Like, I'll tell you. Like, don't get me in trouble for this. But we have a pretty aggressive program looking at ways to implement AI at UTA in the right way in service to clients. And one of them is you can imagine, we're a very email-heavy business. So whatever you think, like, you can imagine, like, all the deals happen in Hollywood. They're not like going on like Amazon and like clicking, please hire me, Bad Bunny. Like, that is not how it works. Okay, it's a lot of phone calls, it's a lot of email, and all the deals. Every deal is all a piece of paper that's coming in an email. And so we have agents that, I don't make this up, especially in our creators business, which is like influencers and whatnot. Every day they get at least 1,000 emails that come in. At least 1,000 emails. That's not a make-believe number. That's like the actual number. We have broken. We've had to call Microsoft. We can't actually. Microsoft Office 365 cannot actually even retain their emails for a year.
Wow.
We've had to reduce the threshold. That's how many emails that we get in for certain people. So we've spent a lot of time kind of thinking that through, and it's kind of pretty interesting to see kind of like, how are we going to like take this information out? And so one of the things that we did is like we looked at like major companies like Live Nation and whatnot, and how do we take information that's coming in from these emails, just extract it out and go get it into our deal system. So you can imagine how many people sounds like that is the most exciting job in the world. Read email. What does it say? Look at that again. Not an exciting job. Everybody agree? They learn by reading all of this thing over and over again, wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off, wax on. And they're never going to be a great agent unless they kind of do this over and over again so that they can develop critical thinking. And I was like, that's a really good point. This is back to change management of the future. It was like, well, what if and we're looking into this, we haven't done it yet, but it's like, well, what if we took the same tool and while they were in their training stages, it did the opposite. Instead of like do the extraction, we put all the blank fields, and it just checked their math. Just check their math at the end. They're like, oh yeah, we would like that. And then until they did it X number of times at 95%, that they couldn't use the automated version. Yeah. It was like, oh, this is interesting. I could actually now see training kind of coming into like developing the workforce.
It's going back.
So this is, I think we're going to have to completely rethink change management and training. And I think you were talking about how you even have to do that at PwC.
100%. Right? I think in any industry, there's an opportunity to go back to the apprenticeship culture in some ways. Right, to pick those people and really spend the time. At the same time, I think there's a lot of mundane tasks that aren't critical thinking that we can automate. and I see that all the time, like
Agreed.
Writing a report or whatever, but like core to learning their skill was reading the email and going through the at-bats and starting to build that knowledge. We can't get fully away from that or we're gonna be in trouble. So I do think changing the culture and how we train and spending the time, getting leaders from the top to adopt that is gonna be critical for us to be successful.
Yeah.
And I think that's especially true in kind of a lot of professional services, licensed professions, healthcare. There's no, as we were talking, there's no compression to experience. So if you can just amplify that entire interaction and elevate their learning curve, that's going to be so much better from a learning perspective and their ability to service their end customers.
Yeah, we were talking about Andy Jassy when I was at Amazon had a great saying, which I think is true. There is no compression algorithm for experience as a human. So in the world of AI,
Yeah.
and so how do we rethink that? Because we're expecting creativity and critical thinking is the magic. So how do we set ourselves up for success? If we want the human in the loop, we got to be in the loop. So, that's
in the loop, ahead of the loop.
Yeah, the head of the loop. That's right. Leading the loop.
Yes. So again, I think as we kind of try to wrap this up, I think I want to go to both of you. But what could leaders do, enterprise leaders do in the next 30, 60, 90 days, especially from an agentic commerce perspective, and then any piece of advice? So again, obviously the world is changing faster than ever before. But then what do I do next 30, 60, 90 days? And then why don't you take it? And then
I'll start. Yeah, I mean, I think I want to hit 2 points. I think one, the piece on leaders leading from the top and then pushing the organization. Don't wait. Get started. Get those people.
So you're saying we don't need to get the data strategy right?
We're gonna. That's gonna be. We're gonna be working on that for a long time. Even though leaders aren't there. But yeah, absolutely. You need your executives, your leaders to be champions of AI and use it for themselves and show the rest of the firm. In my firm, it's really interesting. Our partner chat is full of not just people talking about AI, but actually building things, which is so shocking to me. It's not something that we could have done even 3 months ago. The other thing was we didn't touch on, but I do want to hit on agentic commerce. We have almost 1 billion users on one of the big AI tools using AI every single week. We have so the other brands are really close, these AI hyperscalers. Consumers are starting to shop and make decisions through AI tools. We have stats that show 63% of consumers are using it in some part of their shopping journey. And that's not just consumer shopping, that's also B2B is starting to behave this way as well. They're looking up your companies and brands. So it's incredibly important that you show up, your brands and companies show up when a consumer or professional asks that question in AI. And so really understand where are you in that journey with GEO, and happy to chat on that in the future.
Actually, it's interesting you say that because last week I spoke to a prospective customer. They found us using OpenAI. So it's happening even in B2B businesses.
It's happening.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything Smarter Eric said. Same kinds of things, and that's where we're focused a lot of time on. I do think not losing our way on working backwards from really interesting problems. The only other thing I would say, which is really fun to see, and I'm happy to talk about it on break, is what's happening in storytelling and the transformation of storytelling. If you haven't seen this show, anyone seen House of David? And it's on Amazon Prime. A really terrific show. Yeah, terrific show. It is amazing. Between season 1 and season 2, they quadrupled the number of AI shots, and season 2 came in under budget, which I can tell you I don't see any things out there. And the reason is they actually want to be able to make more content. And so I think be able to do that experimentation, see where it's actually happening really well, and the appropriate use of it inside of workflows, I think is going to be really, really interesting. And just really doubling down on this change management thing. It's like it's kind of urgent. I think like if you looked at the cybersecurity presentation that came up, it's like we got to have the offensive teams and the defensive teams all kind of working together really quickly. And so I think that you kind of said it when we were on kind of prep call, but man, this is all moving really fast. It's like we dropped AI in planet Earth, and it's like, oh boy, let's figure out how to use it. So
lean in and change management.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much.